Greetings, fellow watchers. My question for you tonight is who caused the calamity and who created a game called Wizards Unite that would fix this supposed calamity? We know that Grindelwald still seeks the Deathly Hallows, and what better way for him to get them than to have a few million wizards worldwide out looking for the Deathly Hallows for him? In fact, one of the things that you have to collect inside of Wizards Unite is the Deathly Hallows. So far, this particular quote-unquote Deathly Hallows comes through fortress challenges, which means you're winning it through battles and not finding it out in the real world. However, that doesn't mean that people wouldn't be on the lookout for it if they saw it in the wild or on their map, as the game players say. After all, we're not totally certain which Foundables are in the wild, which ones are in portmanteaus, and which ones are in fortress challenges. Some Foundables end up being in multiple places, in the wild on the map, and in port keys, for example. As another example of this flexibility, the developers of the game told us that a Rumpendorn was going to end up in the portmanteaus, and although I've personally opened up a number of port keys since that announcement, I've only ever seen 4 Rumpendorns and not inside of port keys. They were all on the ground on one particular community day. In fact, on that same community day, spell energy, usually reserved for dining at inns, ended up on the map as well. So the developers of the game are programming us with this kind of ambiguity. In my mind, if a player were to find the Deathly Hallows while walking around somewhere on their map, it might be unexpected, but not completely unheard of. Let's go back to Grindelwald. You know, the evilest wizard in the world until Voldemort. Well, supposedly, he takes a backseat to Voldemort, but I personally beg to differ. Regardless, if you're Grindelwald and you have no idea where the Deathly Hallows are, what do? Wouldn't it be slightly convenient to have a few million people worldwide training their cell phone cameras around their local corner of the world, specifically looking for something that looks like the Deathly Hallows? If a player found the Hallows while out exploring, that player would attempt to register as having found the Deathly Hallows. Possibly the cell phone camera would record what they were seeing at that time, as well as their general location, and Grindelwald would soon be on his way to go collect. I'm telling you, Grindelwald is underrated. Voldemort could never get this many people to work for him so unwittingly. Grindelwald knows the best way to trap flies is with honey and not vinegar. An additional piece of evidence that all is not quite as it seems inside of Wizards Unite is the name Constance Pickering. A number of people already suspect she's up to no good. One of the reasons being that she kind of cheated to get the job of handling the calamity, which she admits to us partway through the game. Real quick, just for those who don't actually play the game, the calamity is the name of the event that caused a bunch of magical objects, which we've termed Foundables, to be fragmented and thus thrust out to random places around the globe. Another piece of evidence is her name, Constance Pickering, which sounds a little bit too much like constant bickering, that it might actually mean something about her role in the calamity. I suspect we're going to find out that she's some kind of double agent a few months down the line. Think about it this way. She's the one who came up with the idea of a Foundable registry in the first place. But does that Foundable registry actually make sense? We find out early on in the game that we have to collect Foundables multiple times because they've been broken apart into fragments. It follows then that if you find all 4 fragments of one object, you should be done collecting that object. But once you prestige a page, suddenly you have to find 12 fragments of the same object. In other words, we are not protecting the Statute of Secrecy by collecting objects. By collecting Foundables and prestiging a page, we're making the situation much worse because we create more fragments that the nomad community can encounter in the outside world. This is bound to be frustrating for any witcher wizard. And who benefits from our Sisyphean task to protect the Statute of Secrecy? People might think that the real bad guy is that grim Fowley character or his wife, but it seems obvious to me that's ultimately Grindelwald pulling the strings. Think about it. By doing a bunch of work to protect the Statute of Secrecy, only to have it predictably make things worse over and over again, Grindelwald has designed this game so that we will start to question whether it's worth it to protect the Statute of Secrecy in the first place. He's using the ridiculous bureaucracy of the registry against us, so that when he finds the Deathly Hallows and finally comes out of hiding again, we'll be more open to the idea of breaking the Statute of Secrecy and allowing wizard rule over the nomad. What do you think, fellow watchers? How likely is it that Grindelwald is pulling the strings behind Wizards Unite? Could Constance Pickering be a double agent? Comment below with your thoughts.